Hey, what's up, everyone? CR Pettit, host of the Growl Podcast. Thanks for tuning in and checking out another episode. I cannot thank you guys enough for supporting the channel. Please, if you haven't subscribed, do so. And once again, check out the merch store at thegrowlpodcast.com. Check that stuff out. Pick up a shirt, pick up a hat, pick up a whiskey glass, pick up something, help us out, support the channel. It helps out tremendously. And on top of that, an easy thing you can do is share this content, right? Share it on your Facebook, share it on your Instagrams, share it on your whatever you spend too much time surfing around on. It all helps in introducing and opening new eyes to the show. We have some great guests, and this guest is absolutely no exception. Pioneer, and without a doubt, one of the best in the game. John Longstreth is no joke, and he's got more clout, more history, and more intelligence in his instrument than most of us will ever compare to. So check this out. The dude's got a lot to say. He's a tremendous guy, pretty intense guy. Had a great time sitting down and talking with him. I've rubbed past John at shows through the Midwest for decades now, and finally got an opportunity to sit down and connect with him. And beautiful part about this is how friendships are born. John's an amazing guy. Check his stuff out. He's got a long history. I'd tell you all the bands he's been in, but you'd better off just go to Metal Archives and check him out because it's too many for me to name. But check it out. Had a great time sitting down with John. And once again, thank you guys. Enjoy the show. So are you born and raised Kansas City, or were you born and raised at?
I was actually born in Wisconsin.
Okay.
And then moved to KC. I was born in Wisconsin in 76. And we moved to KC in 81 because that's where my parents are from. And my dad had gone to Wisconsin because he's a jazz musician. So he got a job being a regular at the Playboy Club.
Oh, fun.
And so, yeah. So after that all went down, we came back to KC, and that's where life pretty much starts for the family.
Sure.
And so I was in KC until 2003, and went to the East Coast, and I've been here ever since.
Right on. What drew you out there?
Skinless.
Oh, yeah.
Like Origin was on tour with Skinless in 2001, and we got along real well. And Bob was talking about leaving, and eventually 2 years later, I got a call from Sherwood saying, "What do you think about coming to Upstate and helping us with the record for a little bit?" And that ended up me joining the band for a year, and then I just stayed up there.
Oh, sure. So, kind of diving back since we started on your youth. So, getting into Kansas City, what was kind of the lure? Obviously, your dad was a musician, so that had probably a big part of you getting into music. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he didn't want me to, but try telling your kids to do anything.
Right. I live that battle daily, my friend.
My mom was a nurse. She's retired now, but so he saw her getting a real job and having a constant paycheck and stability and all that stuff. And he was a jazz musician and all the things that come along with being a career musician. And he wanted me and my brother to, be smart. And neither of us listened to him.
So your involvement in music, when did you start? Did you start out on drums? Was that your first instrument, or what was?
Yeah, it's always been drums. There was a minute where I bought a guitar, and I thought that was going to be the thing. But my friend at the time, Sean, he had a guitar, and within 2 weeks, he had progressed from not knowing how to play the thing to playing full songs that existed. And I'm like, what the fuck? And decided that I really liked Van Halen and decided to play drums instead. So there was a drum set in the house from, man, it's hard to say, from back in my single digit years to, and then we're talking about early teens where I actually just started playing the drums, and that's how that went.
Sure. So getting involved in bands and stuff, your first involvement in bands, what was that like for you?
Just just from hanging out at the music store all the time, hanging out at the drum shop, and there was a bulletin board, and there was a band that was looking for a drummer, and it was a phone number, and I called them, and I remember I was talking about other bands with this guy, and he goes, can you play double bass like really fast? I'm like, not really fast. He goes, what? But can you play like Obituary fast? I'm like, oh, I don't know about that, because I hadn't really heard Obituary yet, and I wasn't aware Obituary was a slow band or a slower band, and so there was a lot of talking about bands I hadn't heard, but I acted like I knew about them. Yeah, of course, man, that's cool. And it's how what are we doing here? And that's kind of how a lot of that went. Went to this dude's house, and they had a drum set there, and I think I had gotten their demo tape somehow, so I listened to the songs, and then it's just went the way it's supposed to go. There was not much of a learning curve. It was get in, chat for a few minutes, adjust the drum kit, see if I could play it. I can play it. Cool. Here's 4 songs. Let's fuck around with these 4 songs for about an hour. Take a break for about 20 minutes, 30 minutes. His mom brought us down lemonade and sandwiches. And then we played for another hour, and then we talked, and do you want to join the band? Sure, I'll join the band. That sounds pretty fucking cool. And that's how that went. And I was like, well, that was easy. Everything seemed natural and cool. And that band ended up playing 2 or 3 shows before I moved on to something else.
Sure. So, first, functioning, productive thing you did was at Angelcorpse, or were you doing things prior to that?
I'd say the first, functioning. Wow, the first band, if we want to say functioning, as in recording something,
shows, recording, kind of
shows and recording. Yeah. So my first 3 bands played shows. And then I got into this band called Malicious Intent from Kansas City. And that one actually played a bunch of shows and cut a demo. And the demo got a little bit of a label interest. There's this label from Texas called Cranial Captivity. And they kind of wanted to sign the band, but it didn't materialize into anything. So that was that. And then, I got a random call from Gene from Angelcorpse, because he had thrown a party and some dude showed up, and he's like, I know a guy that can play blast beats. And so that's how Angelcorpse came about. And I want to say that was 95 or something like that. Maybe the very end of 94. It's hard to say, but I don't think I was in high school at that point. So that would put it at 95. And the same thing happened with Angelcorpse. I got on a phone with this guy, went over to the house to talk to him, and then he goes, all right, let's get your drums out here tomorrow and let's try. And then I got my drums out there, and it just went like that again. And we ended up starting writing the first 4 songs that ended up being that Ghost to Azazel demo. And so, I took that. I went with that, didn't I? Sorry. Yes, Angelcorpse is the first. I call it the first pro band.
Sure, you bet.
That I was part of.
You feel free to wander. We're just having a conversation.
So. Blah 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 blah.
There you go. So when you kind of reflect back on those early Angelcorpse days, good memories.
Good and bad.
Yeah.
I mean, I have to credit that band for being the first band I recorded a demo with, first band I recorded professionally with, first band I went on tour with, first band I got kicked out of. All kinds of things, like everything, most of the things that can happen. This first band I got drunk with, if that matters. And so, like, everything you do in a band kind of all happened within that 2 or 3 year period that I was in that band. And and it ended they let me go because they found a drummer that was more, he was closer to their age. I was like 3 between 3 and 4 years younger than those guys and very, very teenager. So
Yeah.
I wasn't practicing where they knew I needed to practice.
Right. Well, 3 years
And
at that age is a lot.
it
You know,
is.
3 years at our age now doesn't mean shit, but you know, you get into late teens, early 20s, especially nowadays. I mean, it's a
Hmm.
massive age gap. So,
Yeah, if you're 23 years old, you don't want to hang out with a 19-year-old. That's
no.
gotta suck. I can't imagine at this point. I don't remember, but I remember enough. And I knew it because back in those days in that band, the very first Angelcorpse, Gene was really aggressive and you got to practice more. You got to practice more. You can't play this part right. You fuck that part up. You fuck that part up. But at the same time, Pete was almost like older brother. He's like, cool, man. No, all you got to do is practice. He ain't mad. You just got to just keep at it. And, Pete kind of older brothered me. And
hmm
then those roles completely reversed by about 2006. By about the time that I went back and recorded that of Lucifer and Lightning record, and Pete just didn't know who I was. He just looked at me like, what? And then, Gene and I were working on the music, and so now I'm working with Gene in the Malefic Throne band, and it's totally fucking, it's really about the sickest thing ever. So,
Yeah, yeah. I was just going to bring that up. It's kind of the gateway question into that. So it's you kind of back working with Gene again. How'd that come about?
how did that come about? That was like, there was a lot of negative energy between me and the Angelcorpse camp, and
hmm
we didn't like each other, and things were said back and forth. I think. I mean, I know I said some shit, but at one point in time, I was out with Hate Eternal, and I ran into Ronnie Palmer, and he goes, "Yo, Gene wants to talk to you," and so I went over and spoke with Gene for a minute, and we had a great conversation, and that was that. Um, anyway, right at the beginning of the pandemic, did Murder Hornets make it out to where you were? Did you guys get that?
I don't think so. That doesn't ring a bell, so I don't think so.
Yeah, there was a thing. Murder Hornet was prominent. We were we were reading about it in New York, and Steve was reading about it where he's at. And so Steve posted on Facebook one day. He goes, "If I had to start it all over again, I'd name the band Murder Hornet." And I think I said something along the lines of, "Can I play drums?" And then Gene said something, and next thing you know, I'm going to work, and Gene sends me a text message. He goes, "Hey, I know that was a goofball joke, but maybe we should write some shit." And he said that he had some material that he was just kind of sitting on, and that's handful of text messages over a course of a week, and we're trading MP3s with
Nice.
I can't remember if I was using a combination of drum machine and eKit at that point in
hmm
time because we were in the middle of the pandemic and I couldn't go to the studio, but I was able to track, fake drums.
Sure, sure. So then rounding out the lineup, you know, getting your vocalist in place, and how'd you finalize everything?
What do you mean finalize?
Like getting Steve involved, and
Well, like I said, it was
oh, it was
Steve's
his.
Facebook comment.
Oh, what's Steve's? Okay, that's funny.
Yeah, yeah. So Steve
I
actually sparked the whole thing by just
There you go.
by just that
What's
that
it like
that.
working with? Is this your first project with Steve?
It is, but I've known him for a while.
Yeah.
This is why a couple of times I've been asked about this band, I've said that this whole thing, this Malefic Throne, is a conversation that started in '97
hmm
because, or maybe it was '96. Here we go again. Because we had gone down to Tampa to record the second Angelcorpse record, Exterminate, and there's a lot in that 2 weeks of my life that made things break and change and alter course and what have you. But of a lot of the things that went down, we got to see the new Morbid Angel guy in person before the rest of the world did.
Right.
because Morbid had put out Domination, and then they had put out Entanglement Chaos, and David Vincent was leaving, and what the fuck? What's that gonna mean? What's that gonna
Hmm.
be like? And then Steve came in, and we were recording in Studio B while they were mixing in Studio A. And so Gene already had an in with Tampa because he had already lived there for a little bit. So that's when we went down to record at Morrisound. He already knew everybody down there. So next thing you know, I'm barely a year into doing this professionally, and I'm hanging out with Pete Sandoval, you know, Tony Lariano, Corpse Grinder, all the Cannibal Corpse guys, the Monstrosity guys. The first place we went was Antar Coates' house, and then we went to Lee Harrison's house from there, and just
Yeah.
like wall to wall death metal royalty. I'm like, oh my god. And I think they all sniffed me out at that point in time. Like, who is this fucking kid with the fucking attitude and not enough chops to, to back it up? But one of the cool things was hanging with Steve, because he was kind of at the beginning of his super professional thing too. I know he had done some bands before that, but all of a sudden he's a new guy in Morbid. They were like, hey, why don't you come in and do some backup vocals on the Exterminate on the Angelcorpse record? And management slipped in and said no, because we don't know when the albums are going to come out yet, and he has to be heard
Yeah.
first on the Morbid Angel record. So in case the Angelcorpse think, well, can we do it with that? And then eventually I think it was like, fuck it, never mind. But we did a lot of hanging with I just remember it was Angelcorpse was 4 of us at the time, so it was me, Pete, Gene, and Bill. And there was an afternoon where we went biking, as in BMX biking in the woods with Steve, Trey, and Antar, and somebody else. But yeah, there was a lot of hanging out at that point in time. So I like to kind of fantasize it a little bit by saying Malefic Throne starts as a conversation from ‘97.
Right.
Which makes people say this band has been in existence since '97, which it hasn't.
Well, it's cool. It's kind of one of the really cool aspects of this industry, and I know you can attest to it with as much session work as you've done, and like interconnectivity with some of the great names in the industry is you never know who you're going to run into and how you're going to click and what can happen from that. And some of these super groups is kind of a crazy term to put on it, but some of these side projects that end up coming out that are so strong, between your new project or even like the Ultimus or anything like that, where it's a lot of talent that's like you don't visualize these people connecting together, and then as an outsider watching it happen is your new project blew me away. The Malefic Throne project, I've known Steve for a long time, so it's when he told me he was working on it, he because you guys, when did you start working on it? It took a while to get things wrapped, or at least your idea was
The album,
yeah.
I want to say, what is it's 26 now. I think I tracked my drums in 23, in the summer of 23, maybe.
Yeah.
But between all of that, I know Gene had some tours with the Perdition Temple band, and I know Morbid Angel must have gone on tour twice.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Steve was trying to get some distance from the Morbid Angel thing too, to write in a clear mindset. I know that he took his time, and it shows that because I talked to him a couple of times. He's just like, I'm just give me a little bit. I'm working on this shit. It's going to be sick. And it was. Ended up being really fucking cool. Gene completely redeveloped his home recording rig and learned how to use it. So it was a lot of little steps that came about. But the coolest thing about that record was nobody told anybody what to do.
Right.
It's just 3 dudes that have been doing this for long enough, and we worked on our parts, and we got our parts really, really snappy, and went in and just popped everything off. And what you hear is a complete, it's just that. You know, nobody told me not to blast. Nobody told Gene not to solo. Nobody said, Steve, rewrite this or anything like that. It was none of that shit that you have. Like everybody came and presented their shit, stacked it all on top, and Colin mixed it, and there you go.
Right.
That's
Right.
the album.
So are you guys planning any shows at all? Do you got any plans to do any
We
of this?
are planning to plan shows once everybody can be in the same place.
Yeah. Yeah.
We got a music video. We're gonna shoot a music video here pretty soon, and there are offers,
Yeah.
and
I would assume so. Yeah.
there are some offers, and so we'll see.
Good.
We
Well,
also
I hope
have to
that pans
decide.
out.
We also got to decide whether or not we want to go out with one guitar player. We're probably going to pick up a second guitarist, you know, just to fill out the sound. But so there's
Yeah.
a lot before we can actually do that.
Sure. Sure.
But I think it'll happen.
Well, good. Well, hopefully it does. I mean, it's a crazy ass project. I mean, there's again, you know, you see these things, and sometimes, you know, you get so much talent in one room, it just doesn't work, and then sometimes you get so much talent in a room, it just boggles your mind. And I think that's you know, Steve's got a level of delivery and creativity vocally that is pretty unmatched, and obviously your drumming skills are very, very up there in the elite in the industry. So. It's a great project, and I hope that you guys get those opportunities to perform and stuff, because it's material people need to see live for sure.
I think so. But like supergroups can go the wrong way too, because
100%.
you know you've got three guys that are essentially owners, I guess, in their band. You know, I'm a quarter owner in Origin. You know, Gene is I think Gene is sole ownership in Perdition Temple. I mean, he writes everything,
Mm-hmm.
and you know, I don't know what, but I know no one tells Steve what to do in Morbid. So
I don't think anyone tells Steve what to do at all.
no, definitely not. So you got essentially three bosses all coming into a room that aren't really used to, you know, getting out of anybody's way, but nobody got in anybody's way. So it's a pretty surprising. Yeah. Mishaps here and there, but nothing that I can even really remember.
Awesome. So moving on to your exit from Angelcorpse.
Mm-hmm.
What was your path? Where obviously you're starting to excel as a drummer.
It coming back from the Exterminate recordings with the amount of difficulty I had with that, you know, and I was pretty bummed about it. Like the album came out good, but you know, I listened to it. I listened to it today, and it's a challenge because I was like, ugh, you know, that shouldn't have been like that. That shouldn't have been like that. You know, everybody loves this record. But so I came back from that a little bummed out, and I didn't want to come to practice. And then for a minute, I was like, I'm going to quit the band. Fuck these guys. Blah 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 blah. They're going to replace me anyway. Whatever. So I got a phone call saying, "Hey, come to the house. We got to have a meeting." And so I went to the house, and it wasn't a meeting. It was, we're going to bring Tony in, and you know, it's just not working, which I think I saw coming because I remember not being bothered by it so much. And after a while, I just kind of let it go because I don't think we were on the same page personally and playing wise at that point in time. So once that happened, it was almost a relief. Oh no, I'm getting kicked out of the band. That sucks, of course, but at the same time, it's like, I don't need this trouble anymore. And I wasn't gonna be a professional drummer. I was not gonna find a new group of dudes. I was gonna, you know, I don't know. I was considering going to med school like Dad said I should, but I eventually ended up meeting other people and getting refreshed a good 6-8 months out past the Angelcorpse thing, where I'm like, fuck, you know, because once I was actually out of the band for a handful of months, then it bummed me out. But yeah, I was just too young and wasn't prepared for it.
Sure. So, how long after that before the Origin formation?
A year, maybe a year and change. because I was in a local band called Possession for a minute, and
Okay.
I can't even. Yeah, I rolled with this other band, this friends band. We went out to Topeka and watched them play with 6 Feet Under, and I met Paul and Jeremy, and Paul knew who I was, and he handed me a demo, and went home and listened to the demo. Blew my mind, and called him and said, "Are you really need a drummer for this?" Because holy shit! Because like listening to that demo, there was a guy on there by the name of George Fluke, and massive talent, really killer drummer, but he didn't want to play brutal shit.
Ah,
Like he was in that thing where he had been in the trenches playing metal bands long enough, and he had an offer to join the band Kansas,
no
which
way.
which he went with for a minute, and just I just don't think George had it in him to be a professional musician because he had like an electric jazz band he was doing for a minute. We would go out and see him, and he just didn't want the hassle, which you can hardly blame the guy.
Right.
But so yeah, it was like a year and a half later before I was getting in the room with Paul and Jeremy and Mark and moving forward with that stuff, learning those 4 demo songs and then like 4 other songs that they had, and I think we wrote one on the spot, and that became the first album.
So I mean, probably not long after that, I would assume is when technically for your playing, I mean, Paul, it kind of had to evolve that way with that kind of playing. When did you really start exploring that super technical aspect of drumming?
I was into that from the get go. Like it took me cynic and death and atheist to get into death metal to begin with. I didn't understand what was going on with Napalm Death and Carcass, even like Deicide. I couldn't really hear it when I was
Mm-hmm.
younger. It was the 91, I think, 91 or 90 Cynic demo that had enough production on it that I could hear the individual players and I could hear what these guys are really fucking doing, and it sounded really cool. And then that led me to Death and uh, an Atheist, and I guess I should say this was in there as well.
Sure.
And so that those bands sharpened my ears a bit, and then I was able to go back and listen to Deicide and well, fuck, I think Benediction was a big one at the time in my little circle, and so that allowed me to get a lot more appreciation of death metal. And going into the Angelcorpse thing, that's when I learned about I learned more about what was happening with Morbid Angel, with what was going on with the drums, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And then so going to Origin was kind of like going back to that technical thing because they were all much more into the technical stuff. They're into like specifically Deeds of Flesh and the first 3 Deicide records.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the first Fear Factory record was real big. And the way that went down was, I remember it being so mind blowing because Paul was just like, "Oh yeah, we'll just slow it down. Let's we'll just slow everything down and we'll just work on these patterns." And Paul and I would have these rehearsals where it was just me and him sitting there, just like working on patterns, like we do like 5s and 3s. And then we'd go into 5s, and then we'd all left hand, all right hand, all left foot, all right foot, and he would down pick along with that.
Right.
And so Paul was a guy that was a lot more into like he kind of liked rehearsing with me and developing that bass. And so we really just worked on those songs, those first 8 songs he had, and that's kind of how that playing style developed. And there was a lot more like open-handed playing. I had to learn how to do the one-handed roll and all that kind of stuff, and just a lot more double ride stuff that was like I was into a lot of that before Angelcorpse, but that wasn't the correct application for Angelcorpse. So
Sure.
that got put on hold for that band's tenure, and then Origin came along, and yeah, it was really just me and Paul sitting there slowing everything down. He was a lot more patient with me, I think, because he was into developing a drummer that would serve his band.
Right, right. Well, it makes sense in the way you guys were going about it, because it's so, I mean, percussive and guitar wise, Origin is unique in a sense of the way that they're so tied together. That, you
Mm-hmm.
know, not using drums as a specific back rhythm section, you know, that it's accentuating the insane technicalities of what Paul's doing. And you know, it's just interesting hearing how you guys would approach, you know, curiosity, I'm sure, for a lot of people on how you even write material like that and how you comprehend it, and, you know, sort of break it down, slow it down, and tie each other in. I'm sure it built a ton of chemistry as young guys too, to know what he's going to do, what you're, you know, knowing as a guitar player, knowing what my drummer's going to do, how he's going to react is, you know, 90% of chemistry. So you guys definitely have built something unique through the years.
Yeah, dude. We not only we because we came from completely different backgrounds. Like Paul had to sneak playing guitar.
Hmm.
He was a violinist in high school, I think, in music class. So his mom had him uh, playing violin all the time, and so what he did was he recorded one of his violin rehearsals in his bedroom, and then he would put the cassette tape on his stereo and turn it up to a specific volume, and then go into his closet and shred on his guitar. And his mom was just like, he keeps playing the same thing without fail. Wait a minute. So she goes up there, and he tells this story a lot better than I do, obviously, but she like rips the door open and presses stop, and he's like, oh God. He's got his guitar. So he had to kind of sneak that, I think. My dad was always into me playing. He just didn't want me to be a professional.
Right.
And then as the drum kit kept growing new drums, like you got 4 toms and 2 bass drums. And I'm like, yeah, I'm thinking about a second snare drum too. And he's just like, what are you doing? This is ridiculous. Is this so saying that, Paul and I had different languages we had to meet in the center with. Like he talked about guitar in a way they didn't quite understand, and vice versa. I talked about drums, so we had to learn each other's vocabularies too.
Hmm.
So but I mean, that's what music is. It's a way of communicating. So
Yeah, yeah. And that's
the
a chemistry that I was referring to. Like, you just learn
hmm
how to communicate on a level that is beyond two dudes just jamming in a room. You know,
yeah.
you get that soul connection where you know what Paul's going to do and he knows your tendencies, and that's
I remember asking him very, very recently about one of the songs on Echoes of Decimation, which was the album I didn't play on.
Mhm.
And I'm listening to this song. Uh, it was either Reciprocal or Burner. I'm not totally sure. But in the midsection, it sounds like the guitars and the vocals are in like triplet, 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 1 2 3, 1 2 3, 1 2 3, 1 2 3, 1 2 3. But the drums are just flat out 4 on the floor, just square. Blah, 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 blah. And I think what I was doing is I was trying to track drums at home so we could figure out if we wanted to do a kind of a suffocation thing where they re-record a song from Breeding the Spawn every album. But
Right, right.
I was asking him, I go, why is the entire band playing triplets yet the drummer is just doing and yeah, that got him to go into a whole like basically said the dude didn't speak the language at the time.
Yeah.
And he never got to. So that was kind of one of the downsides was, here, try playing this, and the guy would be like, nope.
Yeah.
And so that was like part of that downfall, I guess. But I found that really fucking interesting because you kind of hear that the band wasn't clicking, you know.
So, speaking of the not playing on Echoes, what's covering the gap that like '05 to Antithesis, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So what
Yeah.
what led to the departure? What'd you do during the interim there?
We went on a tour we went on a really bad tour right before Christmas. And it was like the pay was bad, the booking agent was bad. We were out with Immolation, and that was the only thing that sustained us is that we were hanging with those guys. But we were going broke. Every night was a deposit night, if you know what that means. Ugh. And I was like, how can you have a deposit night every fucking night? And it was that guy that I'm not gonna say who it was, but we got home and we were talking about a tour idea that I didn't really believe in. I didn't think it was a good idea. And, I just kind of went, all right, guys, I need to take a break from this. I've gotten an offer to go up to New York and do the Skinless record and do a handful of shows. I'm going to be gone for about 3 weeks. And they didn't take that. They didn't take to that very well. Like, what are you talking about? What do you mean you're going to leave? I'm like, well, Paul just moved to San Francisco, so I'm going to go over to New York and cleanse my palate a little bit. I'll be back, I think. And they started looking for somebody. They were mad at me. I don't blame them. So they got a guy, and that became Origin going with a new drummer and me staying in New York. Coming back, it was bizarre. I can't remember. I went through San Francisco with Dying Fetus. I was filling in for Fetus, and we were doing main support for Guar, and we rolled through San Francisco, and the band needed some gear. And at that point in time, if you're a death metal band and you're in San Francisco and you needed gear, there was only one guy you talked to. It was Paul Ryan. So we went over there. We went and hung with Paul for a couple hours at Guitar Center and put him on the guest list and played the show. And this is kind of what started up this is what got Paul and I talking again. And I remember I was in the studio. I had just finished tracking drums for the Denmark record, and Paul's like, we need a guy, and I got to ask you first. What do you think? And I'm like, yeah. And he goes, okay, well, I'll call you tomorrow. So we ended up having a lot of conversations just basically repeating that, because he wanted to make sure that I wasn't going to repeat the same litany of shit that I had going on at the time, and I needed to make sure that he wasn't going to fucking hit me with the racket he was hitting me with at the time. And we're like, all right, cool, man. Yeah. And then I guess what happened was we put a tour together. This is back when Rich Hoke was still working at Relapse, and he threw together a 7-week long venue, like little club tour that we just went out by ourselves and played with the local help.
Wow.
And that's how we got it back together. And then, then we started writing Antithesis,
which is a crazy, crazy good album.
Thank you. At that point, At that point, Jeremy was not in Origin, so we called him back for writing that record.
Yeah. So, as far as looking at the history through Origin, do you have an album that means more to you than others for one reason or another?
Well, the first album means a lot, but I think Entity is really, really important because we were in a pinch. Like, we had a vocalist for a while, and he decided, not quite at 0 hour, but close enough, Like, we had book studio time, and we were writing material, and Paul called me, and he goes, Micah's not going to do the album. He doesn't want to be in the band anymore. And he wrote, I don't want to tour. And, okay, shit. So what actually ended up happening was I called a handful of vocalists, and nobody was really, so we decided, all right, let's do the album with just us, and then we'll pick a guy up, and if he works, great. If not, whatever the fuck, who knows? And so we ended up tracking that record as just the three of us, and Mike was writing lyrics, and Paul was writing lyrics, and I was tracking drums, and Mike and Paul ended up doing all the vocals on that record. So we almost called the album Triumvirate because it was just three of us, but good thing we didn't. But I remember someone going, "That sounds like Trivium." I was like, "Yeah, it does. I guess we can't do that." But yeah, and like as we were tracking that record, I called Jason and I was just like, "Do you want to join Origin, or you want to go out on tour with us after we finish this record?" And he was just starting a study abroad program for his college. He goes, "Well, I'm going to be gone for 8 months, 9 months." I was just like, "That's fine. We're going to track the record and we'll just delay the release of it until you get home, and you can jump in the band and go out on tour with us." And, okay. And that's what we did. Management wanted him to sign an NDA to not share the album. And I remember being like, "I don't fucking need an NDA for that. He's not going to share the, he's not going to give the album to anybody. He just, hey, listen to the album. Here's the lyrics. Don't share it with anybody." He's like, "Okay." And
Yeah, right.
that, yeah, we do, management, come on. And that's basically why Entity is important. It's also, I feel like it's like the most, it's the tightest and most ripping we ever were as a band.
Yeah.
Um, I think Unparalleled Universe comes really close to it, and that's an important one as well because that album was easy and fun to record. So that's what I got for that.
Right on. Yeah, it's interesting, how every cycle, it dictates a different memory and different position in life,
Mm-hmm.
and so it's interesting to hear because it usually, a lot of times, as a fan, you think about stuff and you think about, oh, that album's the spot. That's got to be the one that means the most to him. But there's so much more to it as a musician. Like you said, it's, a certain feeling you're going to get from that moment or that recording process, or, how things were with moods, even at that point going through
Yeah.
the process. So,
Omnipresent was the slow album, and I remember Archer Vice. It's when they did when Archer did the Miami Vice type season.
mhm.
And I think I remember a Super Bowl happening at that point too, or the Super Bowl being on in the studio. It was before the Chiefs had ever, gotten up to the low that they got up to recently. Chaosmos was difficult because we were all coming back from our various pandemic issues.
Right.
So the tone in that record was a little darker, I think. And man, no, you're right. Like a lot of these records, they're time capsules, is what they are.
Yeah. Different things for different reasons to different people.
Mm-hmm.
So, in working with Paul, I mean, Paul's riffs are probably unlike anybody else's in the world. So is there been times when you guys get in there and he's like, "Hey, I got this riff," and then you hear it and you're like, the fuck am I going to do on that?
Quite often, actually. And that's not a Paul thing. That is a me hearing distorted guitar thing.
Oh.
I don't know if other drummers deal with this, but a lot of times I just, I'm like, So I could, no, just play backbeat, just double kicks like Pete Sandoval. I was like, how? So a lot of times, what Paul will do is he won't even play the picking hand. He'll just he'll just hit these notes.
Mm-hmm.
Play it again. And of course, a lot of times, what is down to Paul is he'll show me a riff that he's not quite 100% with yet. So every time he plays it, he'll play it a little bit differently. So there's times when I'll actually ask him, I go, "Did you just play 4 different riffs, or was that the same riff that you're just tinkering with?" And it's usually the same riff. So that happens a lot. Sometimes no. Sometimes he plays this riff that just pops right on and it makes perfect sense. So I was like, I know exactly what to do. But I'll usually still ask him. I go, "Is that a blast beat riff? What is it? Is this a blast beat? Is it a groove riff? Is this a punch section? Is this fills?" So I try and ask them those questions first.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times, if I can't make out what he's playing with the riff, I'll ask him to, can you bob your head while playing this riff? Can you nod while playing this riff? You know, and then he'll be like, and I'll see where his one is at, or his quarter note structure.
Right.
And a lot of times, there's been plenty of times I've not even quite understood the riff, but I understood the drums that he wanted on it. So I just
Right.
play those drums, and he's over there just.
Close your eyes and focus.
But as long as this, I just got to count to 4 and hit the crash cymbal on the 1 every time, make it through this section. And there's been, I still don't quite understand what's happening on a song called Malthusian Collapse, but that's a story for later.
So you guys obviously spent a good handful of years all in the same area in KC, and then Paul splits, and then you split. I'm assuming Mike is probably the only straggler, as he's still left in KC.
Mike is the stone, man. He still lives in Topeka, Kansas. He owns a house out there. He has our entire backline, and his address is no. He has the entire. He's ground zero, and yes, we try and convene there to write quite often.
Yeah, so the writing process has obviously changed significantly as the situation has changed. Obviously, you're not all getting in, hashing it out through every single song. What's your process like now? I'm assuming Paul writes a good majority of things, and
it's different every time. Yeah, Paul writes the basic riff, and that'll get tweaked as the drums come on. Paul writes, the thing he does that's different than most people is he kind of writes sequentially. Like, he'll write the first song first, and then he'll write the second song second, and there's usually not much movement. We tend to write records in the order that they come off when they're released. So a lot of times that's how they're practiced in the room, and that's how they're tracked. Not always, but a lot of times. This is a 70% this direction. But yeah, he'll have a riff, and a lot of times he'll be able to tell me whether or not it's going to be a blast beat or a groove, and then sometimes he'll just go, I don't quite know what's happening here, but I'm feeling like doing this, and it kind of sounds like this, and what do you think?
Mm-hmm.
And so when that happens, when he's got an idea, and he'll always preface it with, this is a little different, I'm not quite sure, I need your help here. And that is usually when we get the sweepy tappy thing in the middle of Aftermath. And that's when we get the that super almost jazz fusion choppy bit in the middle of Saligia.
Mm-hmm.
Portal was a lot of that. But so Paul and I will get the skeletons of the songs down. Mike and Jason come in. Mike is usually like, oh boy, it's fucking tough because every album's been a little bit different. Like Chaos Most, we didn't get in the room until 2 weeks before the studio. I think both Unparalleled Universe and Omnipresent, we were able to get out to Kansas and actually practice a couple of times before going in the studio.
Mm-hmm.
So there used to be like a week of being out together, and then nothing for the next, and then go back to like listening to things, and then we would get in a couple of weeks before going in the studio. This time, I think there's going to be a lot more demoing, just because the mistake of the last record was there wasn't enough demoing, and we went in a little underprepared.
Sure.
So
there definitely has to be some organization and prepping through the process, just the technicality of stuff, but just the confidence, I think, too, when you get in there and you know what you're supposed to be doing, it reflects in your delivery. So yeah,
man, it's like a handful of our albums have been like been like fucking Chinese food, man. We made it really fast and we sent it out steaming hot.
Hmm.
And a lot of people, the people that like it really like it, but then, some people don't, but whatever. Now, this album, I think we are due taking our time and really crafting something. And there's already ideas that are floating around between the four of us that are like, well, this bodes well if we're talking about these little granular details this ahead of the game. So
Right, right.
so it's already got a good look on it, I think.
Good. And then, like, before you guys head out on the road, I'm assuming you all move into Mike's and spend a couple days before you hit the road, or?
Depends. We did that about 4 tours ago.
Mm-hmm.
We're like, we need a new set list. We're playing the same set list for a while. We got to change some shit. And it's like, okay, everybody learn these 5 songs, and then we go to Mike's house and we bash those 5 songs out and put it into a set list and try and work out the set. But the reason we did that like 4 tours ago is because all 4 of those tours were within a handful of months
Sure.
apart. So, like, for the fact that the band's moving on 5 years without a new record, we've been out a lot lately. So it's pretty cool. But yeah, we just did Southeast Asia, no practice, just
How do you guys go about now that you're good solid handful of albums deep and stuff on picking the tracks you want to do?
What do you mean?
Like, when you're going out picking a live set?
Oh yeah. We have like a couple of basic ideas. Like, for instance, Saligia is always going to be somewhere in the middle of the set.
Mm-hmm.
Aftermath and Unattainable Zero are always going to be hanging around in the back of the set, as well as Portal. But out of nowhere, we put Portal in the front of the set. I don't know. It was strange, but it worked. But like, for the longest time, Expulsion of Fury was the opening track because it was just so easy.
Mm-hmm.
And it just was one of those things that was easy to open with. So we kind of we get comfortable and we get lazy, and then we start talking about we need a new set list, and then it takes about 2 tours worth of saying we need a new set list before we actually put together a new set list. So from where it stands right now, we have a run in Australia in June, and I think that closes the book on this record. I think it'll be time to pack it in and get writing. So we're in that point right now where we're talking about writing. Talking about, I kind of want this. Jason's got some concepts, and I just fired over a track of drums to Paul just the other day with this rhythmic idea I was messing around with. And I think Mike sent something, and Paul's talking about digging into his I think he's got like 3 old cell phones just full of riffs or something like that.
Right.
So
the vault.
Paul's in the vault, and so is Jason. And I'm taking a break because I just did a lot of shit, a lot of Origin stuff, recorded a Nordjvel record, went on tour with those guys, and now everything is quiet, and I'm trying to
take a breath.
Trying to. It gets quiet, and you have to go through this phase of talking yourself down and allowing yourself to take a break because we're supposed to be just constantly working and producing.
Right.
And,
right. So you do a fair share of session work, and like fill in for tours and stuff like that. Is it something you get hammered on quite a bit?
Not really, because I don't really promote myself for it. I think I might start pushing. I might start talking about doing stuff like that in a little bit, but I need time away from the music industry for a minute.
Right.
But like, for instance, it's been like about a year that I have been, it's like, this isn't even really a session guy thing, because I do recordings from my home studio, and but I don't do it enough to really have a workflow.
Okay.
It's like those are like experiments that I record and I send back and forth with a guy, and he'll say yay or nay on it, and then buy the tracks off of me. But like, for instance, I'm I was a black metal drummer all year, which was strange. I started working on these songs with this band called Nord Devil, and the main reason being, um, you know who Destructor is?
Yeah. Hmm.
You remember Merkskog?
Yes.
Yeah. So he's playing guitar in this band. He has been for a
Oh,
while.
sweet.
So
Sweet.
so it was about a year of like working on these tracks to record this record, and then we did that, and then it was like, hey, there's a tour. Can you learn these 12 songs? And I was just like, oh shit. So learn those 12 songs and go on that tour. And now I guess I'm a member of the band. It's not really a session.
Oh, okay. Well, if you enjoy it and it's working,
There's gotta be a point where it pays better.
maybe
Mhm.
might be in the wrong genre.
Yeah, you're right.
So 2013, you did Colored Sands with
Wow.
Gorguts.
Yeah,
Did you ever do any live shows
I did.
with that?
I
How was
did.
that?
That was so unfortunate. You know, and like to this day, Colin and I are still like, Colin and I are a functioning unit. Like I just tracked my Nord Devil drums with him, and I tracked my Malefic Throne drums with him.
Mhm.
Every time I go to that guy's place, it's just like, he's one of my favorite people, and he's one of the best engineers I've ever worked with. It's amazing how much of a wizard that guy is. But
Right.
yeah, being in Gorguts, he was like, Colin was like he was the dude that like did a lot of the interpreting and the translating from Luc's method of explaining music to Kevin's method of explaining music to the way I interpreted things, the way, so Colin was like, he was the quarterback on that record. And that was a super, super intense learning experience. And unfortunately, that album got delayed. Like we tracked it. We took a long time pre-producing, and we have a lot of demos of that material. Like the remaster of that album is going to be huge.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's going to be Colored Sands plus an additional 15 songs,
Oh wow.
of demo material and all that. But the album got put on hold because Guts was still signed to, I think, I want to say it was like Olympic. I don't remember. Some
Okay.
old label that Century Media had picked up. And I remember it being ridiculous because they're like, "Oh, we can give you $4,000 as a recording budget." And I'm like, "What the fuck are you talking about? What are you talking about? These 1996 numbers with us in 2013?" And that was a really interesting project because that was kind of like the first album a band ever recorded, because Luc was kind of back. He was out of the industry for a while.
Mm-hmm.
And Kevin and Colin and myself, we had all kind of come up in the same stretch of time. Colin had Behold the Octopus, Kevin had Dysrhythmia, and I had Origin. And at this point in time, Colin was in Dysrhythmia as well. And so Luc brought those two guys on right after calling me, and we did the album. And like I said, it got held up, and Origin caught up with it. So I ended up having to prioritize larger Origin tours for smaller things that Guts was picking up. Guts hadn't really picked up yet. So I did two tours. A little 5-day run to Maryland Death Fest, and then there was a 2-week run Origin Gorguts tour that happened.
So what was it like working with Luc?
Luc's great. Luc is an artist, and he doesn't really at least he didn't, to me, he didn't talk in musical context so much. He talked a lot more in he he did violins, he did classical violin studies at the Conservatoire of Music in Montreal.
Okay.
And so he would like take on this kind of classical composer kind of thing, which was cool most of the time. But then there were times when we're just kind of like, come on, man, just tell him to play the blast beat. But that's what Colin did for me. But Luc was extremely artistic. Everything he does is really really artist heavy. He's a woodworker and all this kind of stuff, and he builds this amazing furniture that he just like hand carves and all that stuff, makes signs. And so yeah, he very eccentric, very intense. And just like any of those guys that have been that any of those first generation guys,
Right.
You're working with them, and I don't know, you're getting it straight from the tap with those guys. It's fucking a lot like working with Sean Kelly, Dimmock.
Yeah.
Because he was the Ripping Corpse guitarist, and you get a lot of the same with Eric Rutan as well. So it's like, yeah, these guys should write tomes. They should. I don't know. I'm not going to say that their methods are antiquated, but their methods definitely carry an older world sense to them. Because like you and I are got to be around the similar age, because like the mid 90s, 95, when they talk about the death metal taking a dip, right? At the same time, that's when black metal came in. That's when I came in. That's when like bands started getting faster and faster and faster, like Cryptopsy and Christian, and is it black metal, is it death metal? And they're all kind of back and forth, like the death metal got a little more evil, the black metal got a little more brutal. And like dealing with Luc and Sean specifically, they kind of didn't really recognize that period the way I did. So there's a lot of different viewpoints. They saw that as, oh shit, this is when everything kind of fell apart.
It is funny that you mentioned that, because it is. So when I first got into death metal and stuff, started playing in death metal bands, was 89, 90.
Okay.
And so I'm 51, and it felt that way to me to a degree. Like, I'd say you get into the approaching the mid 90s when it felt like, okay, death metal is completely getting derailed, and there's all these new elements coming in and all these bands coming in. And, looking back on it, it was a total dipshit way to think, but it was the way you think. You kind of gatekeep things a little bit like this. That's not how things are done. That's not how death metal is. And it's the evolution of the process. And you're getting a second generation of guys coming in who have a completely different interpretation of what extreme is. And I think that's when we saw massive amounts of speed, serious technicality, and in my opinion, to a certain degree, and especially in that early phase, a complete loss of groove, which is what was the roots of death metal and a lot of it. And it was a change. It was a really difficult change for me personally.
So you started much earlier than I did, because I'm going to be 50 in 2 weeks.
Well, and welcome to the club.
Level 5. But I started in the mid 90s. Like I started playing blast beats around 93, but like the Malicious Intent demo was 94, the Angelcorpse demo was 95, I think. The first Angelcorpse record was 96. I might be off a year or something, but I started in the mid 90s. So I read about the dip, about how unpopular it was. But at the same time, I remember going to Maryland Death Fest in 1997 and meeting the guys from Centurion for the first time. Like, they had just put out, I think, Corazonic Chaos Gods. And so it's like, oh, you guys are like the Dutch Deicide. Holy shit. And so at that point in time, I met the Epoch of Unlight guys as well. So we were all starting out in the mid 90s. And so we read that it wasn't, that death metal had died. But at the same time, we were on the grounds watching it build. And now there's
Right.
a lot of bands from that era that are some of the biggest bands in existence.
For sure. I mean, I think
Excuse me.
it's like that from the ashes, I think, element, where it happened so fast. I mean, death metal exploded so fucking fast that it was inevitable for something to go wrong, really, whether label interest or media support
Oh
or
yeah.
whatever, that people are just like, ah, fuck it. There's this over here. We're going to go to this shiny object. But while that happened is like the second wave of guys were just getting turned on to all this stuff as it was fizzing, and that group of guys basically built the foundation of what became kind of that next rung on the ladder and that support structure that built the second wave.
I mean, there
So
was, yeah, it's like I wasn't in Tampa in 91 and 92, so I wasn't able to, but like what Jack Owen said about how none of those bands would play together.
mhm.
I was like, what the fuck? He goes, they should, but they wouldn't. It was
Yeah,
so much ego and so much drama, and I was just like, well, I guess so. There was a lot of that drama going on in Kansas City too.
yeah, I
But
think every scene has their little competition, and
man, it's so funny when I went to Norway to rehearse for the album tracking of the Nordjebel album. I'm sitting there. Oh, what are we doing? We're done with practice. Cool. There's a bottle of vodka. There's weed. There's YouTube with death metal on, with black metal on, and we're gonna sit around and just hang out and talk metal. I'm like, oh my god. You've got one guy saying, this guy sucks, and this guy sucks. And you got the other guy in the room going, I don't talk about the drama thing, just playing guitar. Like, this is exactly what happened in like early mid 90s Topeka when I first joined Origin. This is exactly what happened when I joined Angelcorpse. It was just every, going over there and witnessing that scene and having it be essentially the same fucking thing. It was really fucking cool.
yeah,
But
yeah. It is weird, now looking back, and it's 30 some years later, and when being 50 and thinking like, god damn, you never dreamed that this would be the point of where we're all at, and still playing and still carving out a spot, in history for yourself and whatever. So it's, I look at guys like yourself and Tucker and Jack and guys that have been grinding for so long that it's just nature now. It is what you do.
yeah, yeah. I mean, Jack said it best. It's death metal. It's old and it's ugly.
Yep, I thought that was a great quote. It's like now
um,
age wise, we just fit in.
yeah, it's definitely an angry '90s thing, and
Yeah,
that's kind of one of the things that people like to fucking joke about. Oh, fucking Gen X raised on hose water, left alone by their parents, angry today. The first generation that was 50 at age 20 or whatever the
yeah,
hell. And
yeah.
yeah, I mean, there's a lot to that. It's definitely like a generational thing, and like the modern music doesn't make sense to any of us
No,
because
yeah.
because we handmade this stuff. I mean, I guess, what am I? Am I a halfway through second generation, or am I a third generation guy having started in the mid 90s? Is there anybody that has the grid on that, the generation grid?
Oh, I'd say it's got to be second gen.
Maybe around that, but the fact that all the old dogs are only like a couple years older than me,
Yeah, yeah,
like 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 the old guys are 60. Like Pete is 60. I'm sure Trey is 60 at this point, but
yeah. Close. I think Pat O'Brien's getting close.
yeah.
Don't tell him that, but
So that's cool from the old beginners, from like the guys that were doing it in '84,
yeah, yeah,
and to me, I'm almost 50, so that's only a 10-year gap, and there's a lot to work with in that gap.
yeah, yeah. So, you know, getting older and it's like things are getting more extreme, almost, and more technical as time goes, as far as clarity and your margin for error in playing, and especially you move from studio stuff to live stuff. Your accuracy has to be on point. As you're aging, are you finding you're still 100% in capability? Are you struggling with anything as far as hands, knees, back, or I mean physically, are you feeling good?
I feel good and I feel different. So that's the interesting thing is around 2021, like as we were going out on that first tour post pandemic, my hands were going numb on me halfway through the set. And, and I had experienced it a little bit for as long as I can remember, is that these tips would get numb and cool. And then I would just kind of do this and they would come back. But what was happening in 2021, 2022, 2021 is that my whole hand was getting numb on stage. And then they were just numb all the time. So I got bilateral carpal tunnel surgery.
Oh, okay.
That was a weird time, but we found a charity called the Musician Treatment Foundation, which, if you're a musician and you don't have insurance or you are underinsured, you need to look at the Musician Treatment Foundation. And you basically got to just be able to have proof that you're a working musician on the road.
Mm-hmm.
Like I had to give them a video, and they looked me up they looked me up and saw that my name popped up here and there and so that cleared me a lot. And I was able to get that. It was definitely a top level surgeon. He's in New York and Texas, and he did this, and it was really cheap. And it was a risk because, shit can go wrong in surgery, but it was either going to be a really sad, slow decline, and of just like months and months and years of, oh my God, I can't play drums anymore and I have to quit, to, well, better roll the dice and see if it, if it works or if it's just a hard shut off. I can deal with the hard shut off much easier. Went in there, did the clips, put the stitches in. 3 weeks later, I'm playing drums and my hands are fucking great. Trigger finger surgery right in here. This finger would not open up. So they did that. Right now I'm dealing with a strained hamstring that I'm having looked at. So yeah, but I'm looking at it as, what else am I going to do? And, seeing Pete Sandoval play these songs at age 60, that's inspirational.
Right.
So I'm going to stick with it. I don't know if my body will allow me to do it, but I'm going to do this as long as I can because I don't fucking know, dude. So things change. So, I end up using different techniques for certain things quite often.
Yeah.
I kind of developed the double stroke technique with my feet because to this day, we're talking about turning 50, and to this day, it's been a 30-year career that I haven't been able to get heels up single strokes to work over 230 BPM. Just can't do it. I've looked at all the guys on the YouTubes. I've talked to so many different drummers and how they do it. And for some crazy reason, my body won't work that way. There's no pain or anything like that, but for some weird reason, my ankles and my knees just don't move like that. So I was able to develop the double stroke on the feet technique to get me halfway. And then, of course, there's a lot of things like playing with fingers. There's just adjusting your technique for your age. But like the Origin record is not going to be 20 BPM slower. It's going to be straight out.
Right. And that's what I'm saying. It doesn't, if you're aging and you're slowing down, the music of what you're doing isn't slowing down. So doubling back real quick before I forget, the double stroking.
Mm-hmm.
How do you like develop something like that going in? I'm assuming you didn't have a teacher sitting down and saying, "Hey, John, this is how you do it." You know what I mean? Like working your feet. So
we had a double I think it was a double VHS set, or maybe just a VHS of this guy named Joe Stronczyk, and he had I remember it was like, because we thought it was fucking hack. And my friend Jim is just like, whatever, it's only $15, right? And so he picks it up and we're sitting there watching it at his house. This guy's doing heel toe, heel toe, heel toe. And He called it the ballistic double bass method, and we're just laughing at this guy. This is fucking stupid. But he's playing these intricate patterns without breaking a sweat, and he's playing like a backbeat over it, and we're like, I wonder if that would work in death metal. But at that point in time, it was like, nah, man, that's cheating. You can't cheat. So fast forward a handful of years, and I was just kind of futzing around on my drums, and I kind of pop hit it and realized that, oh wow, that might work, because this is when we were writing Antithesis, and Paul's just getting faster. I'm like, so I just kind of decided I would go to the room and give it a shot, and heel, toe. I had my foot way up in the pedal, so my toes are like almost up against the drive strap, and I'm messing around with settings, and I just dedicated about 3 or 4 months, 5 days a week, like 2 or 3 hours a day of just doing that. And I was playing along to a lot of real basic. I think Legion of Inveracity was in there. I think I was trying to get Covenant. I think I was trying to get it to work with Covenant, because like just in Legion of Inveracity was really helpful, because that's just, right in the regular double bass and then trying to drop heels into it, which meant I was able to start playing patterns, groupings of 3s and 5s. So I did that, a lot of that for a while, just 3s and 5s. And then I started going on like these mid-tempo heel toe, and I got it to where I wanted it, did the record, and it worked. And then the first time we went out on tour with it, the thing that everybody that critiques you on YouTube isn't aware of is how no control over the environment you have when you're a live musician.
Right.
This is the difference between live sound and studio sound. Studio sound, you're a dude, you're in your element, you've got everything catered to how you hear, how you work. Live sound is trench warfare, and it's the same for playing live. So you got a mushy stage, you've got nowhere to warm up. This venue's too hot, this venue's too cold, and my technique didn't really work all that well. So called that a test, went back home and did another 3 weeks of doing it as slow as possible. And so what actually ends up happening, it's heel toe, but my foot is kind of at the back of the pedal, so it's more of an implied heel toe. And here's the back of the pedal, so it's like 1, 2. And I went to a lot of measures to make sure that second note, 1 E and ah, was strong by playing a lot of shuffles, So there was actually a lot of non-death metal happening to develop that technique. And I didn't talk about it enough, and people got the wrong idea about it and kind of started going into that area to where you're just sort of mashing the beater into the head and just sort of getting that edit. And this is where it's getting all the bad flack from, I think. People are like, double stroke bullshit, he ain't really hitting the drums. I'm like, no. And it's easy to spot that a lot of times, because the question I get the most of is, how do I set the triggers with the bass drum for the double stroke technique? And there's nothing really weird about my setup. The weirdest thing about my setup, I guess, is the bass drum is completely dead, and I use the lightest beater I can find, which at this point in time is just the regular Demon Drive felt beater. For the drummers listening, they know what that is. And I spent a solid, all said and done, it was a solid 1.5 years before I could actually do all this double stroke, before I could actually play the Antithesis material with a 20-minute warm up and play it good. So that is kind of how it goes. And I think somewhere along the lines, people figured out the kind of double bounce. And I even remember like the dude I was on tour with, he goes, "Yeah, I just decided to use the cheat code." And I was like, "Oh, man." And so there's a lot of drummers that allowed the bad connotation with the double stroke
Yeah.
thing. But like, look at Virgil Donati. Does anybody talk shit on Virgil Donati playing double strokes? Nope. He's an absolute pioneer of it. So teaching it to a lot of people can be quite difficult. I'm actually talking to a guy right about now. We're supposed to meet, and he's a ripping double bass drummer. He doesn't, but he wants to explore this because I think he wants it for patterns. But I asked him a whole battery of questions before I even was just like, yeah, I'll work on it with you. But I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah. It kind of changed the game, I mean,
It did change the game for good and for bad. Like, I don't think my intention was ever to double stroke 300 BPM, make kick drum go burr. It was there because Paul was getting up and over 250 BPM, and I couldn't quite hang, at least
yeah.
not comfortably. And I mean, like, even back then, I was like getting into my 30s, I think, and I was just like, shit, I got to figure out a way to make this more, not easy, but more in control. And I
Yeah.
also didn't like the fact that 90% of drummers out there that were playing, singles, I hated the fact that their feet were in triplet, but their hands are playing straight on in four.
Hmm.
Unless you're Max from Christian, and that just sounds sick with their music. It just didn't make sense to me that your kicks are going boogity 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 while your fucking hands are up there going, just like fumbling like your kick drums sound bad. And sorry, bro, like most people can't play single strokes that well either. They say they can,
Right.
but
Makes sense. Yeah. Well, I think there's just a threshold with a lot of that, physically for a lot of people, there's just a threshold before, accuracy becomes the thing that gets sacrificed.
there is. And there's also like, well, double strokes are quiet. Like, well, like there's this mythical character that plays on Iron Cobras at 260 BPM with microphones and combat boots, and you can hear him down the street. And I don't know who this guy is or where he came from, but people talk about that kind of double bass drummer versus the wimps that play double strokes.
Right.
And I'm like, have you ever seen the top guys that are really good at the fucking single strokes playing at 260? There's that much beater,
Yeah.
that much beater clearance. It's just physically impossible at some point in time.
Yeah. Well, so after all these years of touring, do you still enjoy it?
I do. And it was really funny because I had a little conversation with myself maybe 2 tours ago
Mm-hmm.
where we were on tour and something didn't go right and I was mad. And I had a flat tire or something like that. And I was just like, man, bullshit. I could be at home working and getting a normal paycheck and going home and hanging out with my girlfriend and having home cooked meal and being mad about not being on tour then too.
Right.
Because that's what I do.
Yeah.
I'm at home. I'm hanging out with my girl. We're watching TV. We're eating clean. I don't drink when I'm at home. But I'm mad that I'm not on tour, and I'm mad that my career isn't moving and I'm not competing, which is awful. And so I'm on tour, and I start going through this again. And I was like, you're too old for this conversation anymore. You have to learn how to appreciate tour and non-tour as like seasons. So
Right.
I love the hell out of it. It's the most difficult thing I've ever done.
Mm-hmm.
And there's like a serious amount of pride in being good at it and not having a mental break. Like even on tour, like I don't drink enough to be hungover or to be fucked up or have that monkey on your back, because that's all it is at this point, at this age.
Right.
Alcohol just doesn't work for what I want to produce on stage. So it's wine. But yeah, there's things I get mad at about, there's things I get frustrated about, but I'm usually on bad days, I'm usually pretty good at not being around people, because if I'm having a bad day, I'm not going to say anything nice about anything. That's just how you doing? Fuck. Oh no, I don't want to be around that. I don't want to bring that to other people. So that's just, it changes every year. Every year you focus on a different part of it. Every year you try and make it a little bit better by changing this little thing over here, that little thing over there.
Yeah. Yeah. So what do you do, say, then on your off season when you aren't on the road? What hobbies? What do you get into?
No hobbies, man.
Nah.
I don't have any hobbies. I work my day job and I go straight to my drum room after that.
Yeah.
I'm a cook. I work from 6 a.m. to 2 in the afternoon. I jump in the car. I go straight to the studio and I just crunch on drums.
Yeah. Impressive.
I should get into that guitar hobby that I've been thinking about. I own 2 guitars. I know how to hold it. I know how to pick. I
Can you plug it in yet?
I can plug it in, and I can dial the tone in too. But I'm feeling like, because I used to do jiu-jitsu as a hobby.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I guess I do that. I guess I go to the boxing gym once a week and exercise. But for a while I was doing jiu-jitsu. For a little bit I was doing Muay Thai. So there was always like martial arts happening part-time in the background.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm kind of thinking, because I've kind of got this hammy injury right now, this hamstring thing. And so I can't be jumping on boxes, doing box jumps. So maybe I should have a guitar player sit down with me once a week for an hour and just show me the basics.
Sure. Well, I did see you have a YouTube channel.
Mm-hmm.
Do you do much with it?
Man, that's difficult. That's not what I meant to do. I know that in order to be a functioning musician today, you have to be half a fucking marketing guru. And man, I put I got a handful of videos up there. I did kind of an Archspire thing at one point. I did a Morbid Angel video. I got to get some Malefic Throne videos up there pretty soon. And that's kind of what I'm working towards. But as far as developing the YouTube channel, I just don't have the personality to be an online personality.
Yeah, well, I don't know. I mean,
I can't do it like Samus or Mauricio can.
Yeah, because I think you have a lot to teach. I mean, I know we're not all teachers and stuff, but you've got such a wide knowledge base that something to, not to give you a hobby, but it's within your drum world.
To any audio video gurus out there that want to come out and spend a weekend with me and set my room up with a easy streamlinable video thingy, I will definitely have you out. Just show me how to do it. Yeah, I'll take notes so I can write it down. I don't want to go through this learning process. I need someone to go A, B, C, D, E.
Yeah.
Okay,
see, that was my biggest thing about getting this whole thing up and going is like, I got so much other shit going on that it's another thing that I don't have time to learn. And I found that as I get older, my patience to learn new shit is just thinner and thinner. I like to focus on the things I know I can execute fairly well.
We also don't have the sponge brain ability to soak up information like we used to when we were kids. So
yeah. And it's, the YouTube thing is seems like a younger guy's sport for the most part, but in the end, it wasn't that difficult for me to get things going. It was more just getting my brain past that point of just fucking do it and go for it. And it's, it's been a good time. And it's one of those things too, where like with several other of my hobby type things, I just do it when I feel like, so I don't get burned on doing things. So, music's obviously the primary thing in my life to keep focused. And sometimes the peripheral shit, when you start plugging it in, sucks the life out of that. And
So I have DaVinci Resolve right here, and that's like a friend of mine said, dude, just use DaVinci Resolve and learn how to use a quarter of that program, and you can do YouTube videos no problem. I'm like, oh. I poked at it a couple of times. I just haven't figured out how to do it. But yeah, I mean, like the hobby of like developing a YouTube page as a hobby, as the derivative of it is you're developing more of a CV, an online CV for people. So
Yeah.
hopefully that brings you teaching gigs and you know other stuff like that.
Have
I
you done
just
much? Have you done much teaching?
a lot. I've
Yeah.
taught quite a bit. I worked at the Collective School of Music for a little bit in Manhattan, and um, it's difficult to get students these days because of the YouTube.
Right.
You know, almost everybody I teach, they all say, "I looked at this guy, I looked at that guy, I looked at Drumeo, I looked at that, I looked at this, and this is all cool, but this little thing here, I can't quite get."
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, all
And
right, cool.
I see drumming over other instruments being a physical show how. For me, anyways, it would be over playing guitar. I mean, playing guitar, like once you get rolling, you can just kind of roll, but there's some intricacies and physical. I mean, you're connected to your instrument so much more being physical that in-person teaching to me would make a little more sense when it comes to some of those intricacies.
There's a lot of invisible details in playing drums
Yeah.
because, and what I really like, Martin Johanovic, he runs Drum Technique Academy. He's the guy that is doing it the best, in my opinion, because he focuses on like how to interpret what muscles are firing. Like you want to feel this from the calf. You want to feel this from the heel lifting as compared to the toes pressing. How Brandon Green is another really good example. He's a personal trainer. He's from Canada, and he talks about how to sit on your stool correctly. How sitting in the middle of the stool and sitting with your back straight, how that affects your legs. And guys are getting really smart with the physiology of the whole thing, how the whole body works. And it's awesome, but there are still so many things that you just can't cover without being in the room with the person,
right,
and watching it, even touching them while they're playing. Like there's that story about Thomas Lang, super drummer, who was like holding George's calves and his thighs while George was warming up because he was curious about his muscle groups and what was firing.
Right.
So not that I'm going to sit there and touch your inner thigh while you play double bass, but I've touched people's shoulders to see what if they're, and that is a little extreme, but a lot of cases you get guys in there that just can't figure out what the fuck is wrong.
Mm-hmm.
For the life of me, I can't figure out why the fuck I can't get over 230 with traditional double bass. I don't know if I'll ever meet the person that'll come in and like throw the switch and it works, but
Yeah. Learning to relax in certain elements of your body so other portions of your body can perform makes sense. Yeah. Which you can't see it on a video. I mean, that's an in-person observance.
You can't see it on a video, but you really are kind of learning how to relax and breathe under extreme duress.
Right.
Because, depending on the band and depending on what's happening in the venue, that can be some fucking battlefield shit.
Right.
Trench warfare.
Yeah. So, now, I mean, you're a seasoned veteran, 30 years in the game plus. Where do you see the modern state of metal in comparison to other portions of your career?
I see it happened with metalcore, where all these metalcore bands all of a sudden didn't want to be metalcore anymore. They wanted to be death metal.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of people are hearing that with a lot of the modern production things. I think people are I hear young guys talk about authenticity a lot. I remember my friend, when I was playing him some Malefic Throne demos that we were working on, and he was just like, wow, Gene's playing, he's the original, he's the OG, he's got such an authenticity to his playing. I'm like, yes, and are you saying that his playing sounds real, or that like he's Like he created this and he exudes this. I'm like, okay, cool. And I think you've got a lot of people, a lot of young people that are hearing the modern metal and hearing the production values of it and hearing a lot how samey it is. And they're starting to hear slate snare, slate kick. They're starting to hear the Joe Duplantier, guitar sound. They're hearing Tone Hub STL. They're hearing I think a lot of people are starting to hear the technology over hearing the musicians. And so I feel like, people are going to start searching for bands that don't sound as digital and don't sound as gridded.
Right. To me, I think a lot of that, when you kind of touched on it with kind of OG members, I've always kind of, people say, well, for the bands that I play in, they just come out old school because I'm old school, right?
Mm-hmm.
And why a lot of bands that come out that are kind of throwback bands to being, well, we're going for that original 90s death metal sound, but it doesn't have that vibe. And it's the same thing that I would liken it to and say, well, I could start a disco band if I wanted to, but I didn't grow up in the height of disco, right?
Mm-mm.
So it wouldn't have that trench feel to it. And I think what's happening, I think, is a lot of the older guys are still putting out really solid material. And now we're getting, and a lot of those guys are refusing to just cave to, we're gonna syncopate everything this way, and we're gonna and keep it that raw edge that built death metal. And I think we're finally getting through to a lot of people as they age and mature past, hey, let's just slam out a death metal record to I want to put out a good record. And what makes it good is having that raw energy and having that pure human injection into stuff, as opposed to what you were saying. It is so digitized, it is so passed through that it doesn't feel anymore.
I did an album for a guy recently. It was a 6-song album, and just do what you want to do. Here's a couple of notes, and I did that, and the tracks sounded pretty good, I thought. I'm like, okay, cool. But his engineer came back and he says, you didn't fix the kick drums. Why the fuck didn't you fix the kick drums? Do you have a grid, right? I'm like, oh boy. This is interesting because, no, nothing's on the grid. I have I didn't even fit the click track to the grid, I don't think. I think it was an audio click. And I've only recently gotten into building click tracks like on the grid from Reaper itself. I used to just take whatever click track was provided and just put that in there just as an audio file. And I would do my best to there might have been a point in time where I took my tape measure, right? And but I sent these tracks to him and he goes, yeah, this is wrong and that's wrong and this wrong. And I'm like, okay, cool, I can fix that and I can fix that. But what do you mean the kicks aren't fixed? I played them correctly. They're fine. He goes, I could see them waving against the grid. I'm like, I don't use the grid. It's like Roddy said, come down to my place, bring your drums, and I'll record what you sound like.
Right.
But we're not going to patch you into something that you're not. So, and then another friend of mine named James, he regularly records drums, and he goes, yeah, dude, if you can set it up to interface like a drum machine program, you'll have a lot more success with people, because so many of these people that are doing these homegrown productions have never worked with a live drum kit.
Right.
They might be a guitar player that started doing this stuff, but you get a real live drum kit where there are cymbals in the snare and there's kick drums in the fucking toms, and there's bleed everywhere. And where there's a live drum kit, there's bleed and there's phasing issues. And these are things that require an engineer that knows what he's doing. And So a lot of times this is one of the problems with doing home recordings and like sending tracks out to people is two things. A, it doesn't look right, and B, they'll send me back a proof of what they're doing and they've completely resampled everything.
Mm-hmm.
That's made me really mad a couple of times that the track comes out and like they just ran me through Trigger 2 and it doesn't
sound like John.
No, you got my name and you gave me a couple $100, but
right.
So it gets a little difficult, like music is in a very weird place right now. It's so consumer, like, I don't fucking know. I don't know, man. I don't know.
It's weird.
It makes weird people like for real music listeners, it puts them in a position where you have to go online and you have to find the what's the most ethical streaming source to stay away from Spotify or something like that. Like, what streaming service pays the band members the most? That kind of shit. And it makes you have to look out for a lot of things. Like Derek, he said it. I'm like, if I hear a sampled snare drum, chances are he'll just turn it off. I don't know how long I'll make it, but if I hear a sampled snare drum on an Amorphous record, I'm going to be a lot less offended than hearing a sampled snare on a Monstrosity record, which you won't hear, I don't think.
Right.
But
right.
That would be really fucking sad to hear, and unfortunately it happens. Yeah. A lot of this really fast death metal, why do you pay for a drummer when you're just going to turn the drum tracks he worked on into your drum machine program?
Right. Yeah.
And so to put a little bow on this tangent, I think and I hope that there'll be some kind of new renaissance and kids will start looking for music that sounds real because of the way the AI stuff is sounding. Like, that AI thing is going to get real stinky and people are going to be smoking that out. I think people are going to be smoking that out. They're not going to fall for it.
No. And it's reassuring a little bit. I know when like the AI artwork thing kind of was the big huffy puffy on the internet for a while, where everyone it was crucifying anyone and everyone who touched anything AI artwork wise. And I just had this discussion with my wife because my wife's finally just discovering ChatGPT and utilizing it to help her write stuff for work and whatever. And it's like, she's like, well, why don't bands use that? And I'm like, well, unfortunately they do. And I said, but there's a certain level of integrity and I don't even know the right word to throw on it, to where people, like you said, they're sniffing it out and it isn't good. And, if anything, if it would be nice if it would drive back to, hey, let's just record this album. We're not going to use a click. We're all going to flow on this thing. I've got a couple friends I know right now who are recording, full live record, basically minus vocals. So they're tracking everything all together and fixing the little, warts that they can, but it's a live tracked record. And it's like, man, that just sounds like a fun idea.
No, it sounds great. I've talked about doing this with Colin many times.
Yeah.
So maybe it'll happen. I don't know. I don't know if it actually might have been on this podcast. I might have heard you discussing with the guest how they had a baby talk to a robot and the baby started crying.
Yeah, that was me.
Something
yeah.
That was yeah.
Video on that. Yeah. And it's you can just sniff it out. Like, your innate senses can tell you that's not music. That's not a real person. That's not.
It was a big scary thing when my dad was at his career height, that they were replacing bands with Muzak. Muzack, like literally spelled Muzak.
Yeah.
And it was elevator music, and that it took hold in certain areas. It definitely shrunk the market for him a bit, but it wasn't as detrimental as he was expecting it to be, as I don't really expect the AI music to be. The AI music will be part of the dead internet theory.
Yeah.
When the internet is 100% ads and bots and bullshit, that's where the AI music will be. And we will have all moved on to some other place where,
I like your thinking.
I mean, at least if there's like the whole point of the dead internet theory is that we're not there.
Yeah.
Like it's
Well,
just all the bots, and it's just that whole thing. But that's where the AI music can live. It can live there. It can stay
yep.
there. It
Yep.
can
Yep.
exist. It could just be in that area, and hopefully we'll all just go out and be humans again.
Yeah. Yeah. So one last thing I wanted to kind of touch on with you here real quick is being as traveled as you are, what are some of your favorite parts of the world that you've been to?
Kansas City.
Do you miss Kansas City?
I miss the fuck out of Kansas City, Missouri. You know, I really enjoyed the fuck out of um, it was so bizarre because we just did Southeast Asia, and I was really surprised at how much I loved Jakarta and did not love Tokyo so much.
Hmm.
Um, as I've gotten older, I kind of like more fucked up cities more than I like really nice, pretty clean places. I love Queens so much more than I like Brooklyn. Queens is just kind of crazy and vibrant and a little more fucked up. Brooklyn
Sure.
is stroller brigade and young business people. Howdy, neighbor. But like Bangkok and Indonesia just felt so much more cool and exciting to me than Tokyo.
Hmm.
Czech Republic is still one of my favorites. That place is fucking amazing. I really love Leipzig, and I like Leipzig because we're always in this really fucked up venue called the Hellraiser. And I think if there's anybody that knows the story on this place, it's an old industrial wasteland. I think they built airplane parts or train parts or some shit like that. But there's all these old bombed out warehouses, and you're walking around in old East Germany, and like, what were those buildings used for? It's
Mhm.
just a really fucking, and the venue itself is kind of a beat up old building. It's just really fucking cool.
Right.
Playing shows in Holland is really comfortable because, to completely contradict what I just said, the music venues in Holland, they're government owned, they're perfectly tuned, and they're just really comfortable venues to be in. So, it's six of one, half a dozen of the other in a lot of these cases. So, there's a lot of places in Europe I really fucking love. Like I said, I really love Holland. I really love Tilburg, Holland, and I really like Czech Republic. Leipzig, Germany is fucking great. Thailand is amazing. Australia, Melbourne specifically. You know,
You got a lot of good
those
ones.
those are some of my tops. I think I'll probably I'm aiming, if I gotta retire, I'm gonna retire in Australia.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Interesting.
that's where the
Interesting.
missus is from, and I'll just follow her there.
There you go. There you go. Well, my friend, I greatly enjoyed my time sitting around bullshitting with you. I think
Yeah,
we could
thanks for
probably
having
go
me.
for another 2 hours just talking about shit. So,
We could,
anything
but I
you want
think,
to, any words of wisdom you want to throw in before we?
I mean, I don't know. Look after your fellow musicians, man. If you like their music, go to their Bandcamp or go to their page and buy it from them. It's just the same old thing that like guys my age will say, and it's just like, just look out for your musicians, do your best, do what you can to keep live music live,
Yeah. Yeah.
and don't you don't gotta fucking dox people and treat them like shit and yell at them and say all this nasty shit to them, but if you don't like it, turn it off. Don't talk about it.
I
If
couldn't
you
agree more.
like it, listen to it, talk about it. You know, like everybody needs to go buy the new Proto Men record right about now.
Yeah. I completely agree with that, man. And it's something my dad really drove into me hard when I was a young kid is, if I'd criticize someone, he's like, if you don't like it, don't buy it. don't support it. Don't whatever. If you don't like that store, don't go to it. If you don't, to sit here and try to cut someone's feet out from underneath of them because they're doing what they want to do is just mind boggling to me.
It took me a while to get to that, actually. I was an angry teenager and I was an angry 20 something. I was an angry 30 something. But, I eventually saw what some of my words were doing. And I was, they say never meet your heroes, which is half true because I met a lot of my heroes back in the early days and I learned a lot of really good shit from them.
Mm-hmm.
But I also learned a lot of really bad shit from them too. Learning is just learning. And hanging out with this dude and seeing him be this fucking sick musician, but at the same time being a fuckhead to the waitress at the restaurant, you're still learning it. So I'm not gonna take the guy out for it, but I'm definitely not gonna do what he did over there because that just looked really fucking bad. So I don't know, man. I can tell I'm getting older because I'm nowhere near as mad at everything anymore.
Sure.
And I'm a lot more into people being nice.
Yeah, well, I think it's just Phil. For me, I've gotten to that point too where it's like I don't have time for it. I don't have the space.
You don't.
For it. I just don't. Like my days are stressful enough. There's enough hard shit where I got to fight through it, and I've said it on probably every other podcast I have. Is I have very low tolerance for drama. So when it comes up, I'm done with it. I can't do it. I don't. Life, I think, like you say, as you get older and all of a sudden it's like, okay, I'm 50. So the end is closer than the beginning now. And I want as much good shit to fill my time now as I can and finding out how to make that happen. How do I make it happen? How do I make my days better every day?
Time is a motherfucker, but it definitely teaches you how to focus, doesn't it?
Yes, it does. And it's funny too, as I just talked to, Harvey, and same thing. It's like
Matt Harvey,
dude is driven as a motherfucker, right? And we're all, and for me, it's like I'm doing more musically now than I ever have in my entire life, and I'm almost 52. And it's like you get that, but that's why, is because you can't let the negative shit fuck up your day. It's what's it going to take to have a great day and be as productive as possible. And that's when you were talking earlier too. It was like when you'll have a couple drinks, but it doesn't dominate the day.
No, there was a point in time when it did, but I got away from that, fortunately. Matt said that wonderful thing. He goes, you need to follow your stupid ideas immediately. I think it's what he said. He goes, because if you got a good idea and it's a good idea, you got to go with it because someone else is going to have that good idea and you're going to be sitting there being like, that was my idea.
I should have done that. Yeah. But just do it. Yeah, if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But
hopefully it doesn't get your hip broken.
Yeah, it's you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. Is that what they say?
I've heard that one. Yep.
Yeah, so awesome, man. Well, again, thank you very, very much. It was a pleasure to get to know you a little bit better, and I appreciate you sharing your information and your time. And look forward to hopefully seeing some shows from you and the new project as well. And looking forward to all the new shit that I know you got left in you.
Looking forward to it. I'm going to have a couple of months to take a breather, and then it'll be it'll be back to fucking hitting the fast forward and seeing how quickly I can burn these years off.
Well, there you go, brother. Well, take care of yourself. We'll stay in touch, my friend. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. It's my pleasure. Take care, man.